guys are obviously defending champs and will be all next year. Does any of that start right now? And you've done it once, at least at the national level. What do you have to do to kind of prepare for that mindset?
Well, when we won it in 08, we lost all 5 starters.
Right.
But 2 of the guys we had back were a guy named Aldridge and Collins. So we weren't great the next year, but we won the league in Sweet 16. And this year, obviously, we lost 3 starters and 5 of our top 7. So it'll be a different looking team for sure. We got Jay, Will, and Juan back that were starters, but everything else is wide open. But to answer your question, I haven't talked about it much, but everybody else on the team has talked about
it. Okay.
Even the guys, Kevin's or whoever that we recruited, has talked about, coming back and trying to, defend and that kind of stuff. And Jay Will certainly has, and Juan certainly has. So I think it'll be motivation for us. I think it'll be good motivation.
With Kevin, I guess what made him the type of player or the guy that you wanted to go after and fill that last spot with? Well,
we coached against Kevin, I guess, for 5 games. One of them he did play. I don't believe he played when we played in Lubbock last year, but I think it's 4 games we coached against him. And to me, he's the perfect fit if you want to play interchangeable parts on the perimeter, because he's not a point guard, I don't think, but he can play point. That's obviously something that he's done. But if you have some point guard skill and you're big enough to play the 2-3-4 type deal, then you may have something special going on, and that's what we thought all along. We thought he fit us as well as anybody possibly could that was in the portal from a style standpoint.
You couldn't have gotten an intra-conference transfer just even a couple of years ago. How strange is that now in terms of having a guy who's been in this building countless times and knows the program this closely, just from a different aspect of it, and now he's with you guys?
You know what? I don't know that he knows the program this closely. I think there's some, you become more familiar with it when you play against it, but because you play against it doesn't mean you know the inner workings and how you do things and stuff like that. But he's a very, very bright, high IQ guy, and I think him being here in the summer, that's one thing Remy missed out on last year, but being here in the summer from a culture standpoint, he'll start to feel it a little bit, and we're not going to win any games in July or June, but we do need to have a little bit of a foundation or a base going into the fall, and that's what this summer will do from a team standpoint. But I don't know that I look at it that I think I'm more familiar with him than he is with us. I game plan for him, whereas their coaches game plan for us, and so even though it was passed down to an extent, I think he's maybe ahead of somewhere if they're coming from the Pac-12 would be, but it's not so far ahead that the Pac-12 kid could catch up. I mean, so maybe it's a little advantage, but I don't think it's much.
Regardless of how much you went into the portal this season, did the Remy thing come up? I mean, a lot of guys in the portal probably weren't paying attention to every story written about Remy and his injuries and all that, but they know he came here and he won a title. Did that come up at all?
Yeah, but people that recruit against us will say, well, he didn't even start. Yeah. Here's a portal kid that didn't start. Yeah. So that's how recruiting works, and so. But the reason he didn't is because he was hurt. But still, that's how recruiting stuff works. But Remy is a great success story, and I'm so glad it happened. In that, here's a guy that went from being the man to being one of several, and it paid off more from a winning and I'm sure from a popularity standpoint moving forward. So I don't know that it could have been scripted better throughout the whole year, but there's nobody, and I mean Malik or whoever, that had a better last 4 weeks than what Remy's had since I've been here. So that was pretty. It was pretty good for him.
We talked to Juan last week about leadership and other stuff, but leadership was a main thing. What about him, with so many leaders gone, do you think enables him to be someone who can step up?
Yeah, you know, you say with so many leaders gone, and that's true, but it's basically so many older guys are gone, so it's time for somebody else to step up. I mean, a lot of times you can be an older guy and not be a great leader, or you know, it's probably just as easy to be a bad leader as it is to be a good leader, or maybe even easier. So, but we were fortunate last year that we had good upperclassmen that were good leaders, no question. But you know, I said this, I don't know how many times I said this to you guys in the fall and preseason. Hey, DeJuan Harris's team won every day. They always won. He has to step up in that area, but he's been doing it too. I mean, it's not like that's something that's going to be totally new to him. He's won everywhere he's been. He won the state championship in high school. He wins a national championship the first year. He's a starting point guard here. I mean, it's a pretty good track record, so I don't think it'll be, from a vocal standpoint and everything, I think he'll continue to get better at it, but we're not void of leadership. I think Kevin can add to it, and Jay Will's as good a leader as we've had. So sometimes when you have a team full of alpha dogs that all think they should lead, maybe they trip on each other a little bit. I don't think there's any doubt who everybody will look to on this team as the guys they need to be leaders, and I think they're all willing to do that.
How have the new guys looked at workouts, and what do you think of the four of them?
Well, I haven't seen Zuby yet. You know, Zuby got here this weekend, so I haven't seen him yet. And when you say workouts, I've basically seen one or two. So it's not like I really know yet GB, but I think from the little bit I've seen, they all look good. You know, Grady and MJ are both going to be really good scorers of the ball and good big wings. And Ernest has shown some flashes in the short time, the few times I've seen him, and I haven't seen Zuby yet, and Kevin's not full speed. So it's a good recruiting class. I don't know if I'd rank it with you know, Julian, Brandon, and Mario quite yet, but it's a good class that all have a chance to be impact players here.
Well, these are McDonald's All-Americans. Could all these guys fight for starting spots?
Yeah, there's a difference between being a McDonald's All-American and you're a top 5 to 10 player in the class, and the difference of being a guy that's a top 30 player in the class. But the positions are all open. I mean, they're wide open. I don't think there's any doubt that MJ and Grady are going to fight for a starting position here. No doubt. It still remains to be seen how our bigs do. I don't have an opinion on that yet. But should they all be able to compete and fight for it? Absolutely. But there's some guys that are unknowns from last year that, you know, will definitely put up a fight to make sure they're in the best position too. So, and then you can always play small. You know, if Grady and MJ and Kevin and Jalen all have to be on the floor with Juan or Joe or whoever, you can always play small. So I think there's going to be competition and pressure on one of those guys to really come through.
Are Ernest and Zuby arriving well-developed physical specimens?
I would say they're both athletic, and they both seem to be in pretty good shape, and I believe they've done their push-ups and set-ups on a regular basis, it looks like, over time. But they're both going to need to get stronger. Let's just call it like it is. They both need to get stronger, and they will. They're just young.
Do you envision KJ playing, you know, kind of at the 5 or on the wing? Anything different, similar?
I imagine him playing more on the wing, but that's if one of those big guys come through. You know, whether it be Cam or Zach or whoever. But if one of those guys don't come through and be a low post presence like we need, then why don't we play our best perimeter guys if we don't have a low post presence? So ball on both ends. So I don't think it's that complicated, but they're all capable of helping us. It's just Zach's young. You know, Zuby and Ernest are really young, and you know, Cam's the only one with any age on him that you would say would have an advantage from that standpoint.
I know you talk about switching 1 through 4. If you had a lineup out there with Jalen at the 4 and KJ at the 5, would that even be possible to switch 1 through 5?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
You had-
We
you had
we talk about that a lot.
You had the 4 freshmen early, signed early anyway, and then you added Kevin. But the pace of the offseason, much different than last year. I mean, I'm sure you were busy, but did it feel a little more controlled and calm?
I think that's a good point. It felt more controlled and calm.
Mhm.
You know, last year we had some guys leave, i.e. Tristan and Bryce, and I'm trying to think Jethro and Latrell, but it wasn't like huge losses leaving. It was more like, okay, we got to recruit more guys, and there was more recruitable guys last year even than this year because it was the first year of the portal, and everybody had that transfer still available to them. So, yeah, I would say this offseason seems like it's smooth because we haven't had anybody leave, except for what we expected.
Is Jalen here yet?
Jalen is not here. I believe he gets here maybe on Wednesday.
How's
So-
Bobby been doing health-wise? I don't think we've really talked about him since he had the surgery.
I don't think he's 100%, but I think he feels better than he has in a long time. I don't want to say we're going slow, but he hasn't been turned loose yet. He had a bunch of scar tissue that broke up, which is somewhat natural, they tell me, but with that, it created a little bit of a setback for him from a soreness standpoint, but I can't imagine him not being full go here immediately, but I don't know that it's happened yet.
Did anyone need off-season cleanup or surgery or anything?
Not to my knowledge, GB off the top of my head. Bobby's happened in the spring, and I don't believe that anybody's had anything to, matter of fact, I know they haven't. That would be considered going under. Now, there's been different rehab things going on, but nobody's needed a postseason surgery other than what Bobby went through.
Wiggins and Aaron Miles, what do you think about their current postseason? And especially Wiggins, what do you think when you watch him in the finals?
People forget Wiggs has averaged 19 a game for his career. He's had a great, not an all-star multiple time type career, but he's had a great career. There'd be a lot of people who'd love to have a guy that averaged 19 a game you could pencil in for 7 years or whatever, but he's done great. He's done great, and as good as he's been better in the postseason, which is great to see. And you can make a case he's been Golden State's second best player, in the playoffs. So no doubt who number 1 is. And it's a distant second, but you can make a case. He some cases that he could be that. So I'm happy for him. And Aaron is. You can tell Aaron's got a lot of responsibility because of his role. He probably played with Golden State in the past. So seems like to me he and Coach are pretty connected, at least from a visual standpoint on the sideline. So really happy for A-Dot. I don't want to say I hope one over the other wins, but I'd love to see it go 7 and Wiggs be MVP of the series. Even though I'd be happy if Boston won it, but it's nice to see those players that are presently playing do so well.
You can go to Game 7 if it happens.
We were scheduled to go to Game 5, which is tonight, and something came up and we couldn't go. So Game 7, if I'm not mistaken, would be on Sunday. So we'll make the call. But we won't be the only ones making calls. And there may be some guys with some thicker billfolds than what we have. Because the tickets in Golden State or in San Francisco are off the chart compared to anything that I've ever seen before.
Wow.
You got guys that obviously Perry was from Wichita, and you have Brady, maybe even Zach who spent a few years at Kansas. Is there extra pressure to keep those guys in state? Or do you do things maybe differently?
I think there's extra pressure to keep in-state kids in, if you want them, or local kids in. I do. But the bottom line, you can't take them all. There's good players that are guys. Mark Mitchell. There's Aiden Shaw. I mean, these are good basketball players that have gone somewhere else in large part because maybe our situation, or large part maybe somebody did a better job, or maybe it's a mutual decision, but there's some good players in our area, and I think it's far better than what it used to be on a year-in, year-out basis.
One of the things Joe said last week when he was in here was that because he didn't have the stability of the minutes every game, he felt like he was overthinking things, maybe if it was a missed shot or a missed play or something, and he got himself in a little bit of a funk.
I think that's a pretty honest and accurate assessment. I think Joe's role should be more defined as, hey, go score the ball, as opposed to go, not only do what you're supposed to do, but make sure you know what everybody else is supposed to do and where they're supposed to be at all times. And I think that was something that we probably held him back a little bit with last year. And after knowing him a little bit more and how hard he tries and wants to be good and all that stuff, it's going to be hard for him to be good unless he has a free mind because he's such a conscientious kid. So I think what he said is true, and that's partly our responsibility, not letting B feel that way.
So that's what I was going to ask you then, is how then can you be uplifting and supportive, or is that just a message that, hey, things will come, just hang in there?
Well, it's multiple things. It could be maybe we don't require him to feel the responsibility of certain things going on the court at all times. Whenever you're the 8th man or so, your job's to make sure, or the 9th man or whatever you're going to get, your job sometimes is to make sure that the other 4 guys in the game are good, as opposed to you being great. The 9th player very rarely affects the outcome of a game like players 1 through 5 do. And that's not a knock. That's just reality. Usually don't play as many minutes, or there's a reason why they're not starting and all that stuff. And so those kids don't have the same sometimes reckless, abandoned feeling that he wants me to score when everything else is designed for the other guys to maybe do their deal. We got to fix it where Joe doesn't feel that way, regardless if he's a starter or not, that this is his role now. And I think he'll accept that, and I think he'll thrive in that situation.
The draft feel any different? With, you've had plenty of guys drafted, but these two were part of something special.
Yeah. And you say these two, could we get lucky and David go late in the 2nd round or something like that?
You think so?
I don't know.
Okay.
I hope so.
Sure.
But I think that CB has put himself in a position that, and if Jalen would have stayed in, he would have got drafted. And CB's put him in his position to be in the latter part of the 1st round. And I think that's very realistic. And Ochai in the latter part of the lottery, I think that's very realistic. So, yeah, it would be great to see their names called in those positions. But those names called in those positions aren't as important as them getting to a place where there's actually a fit, where they can actually, develop and show what they can do. So, I've never been overly excited on T-Rob and Ben, excited because they went 6 and 7, and then they went to places that it just didn't work out, So, and it's not a fault of the place; sometimes just a fault of fit.
Right.
So, you'd like to see. We talked about this today. Desmond Bain, great college player. He gets into a situation where perimeter shooting is needed and all that stuff, and now he's averaging 18.5 a game, and there's no going back. So be nice to have those guys be in a situation that over time, if they can develop, that they will have some opportunities like that.
Do you have guys calling you on Christian maybe more than Ochai, or about the same on both?
I would say more on Christian, because Christian's range is bigger,
sure,
where Ochai's range is more narrow. And it would be like, I just hung up with the general manager that's picking in the top 3, and their focus is not Ochai Baji. Their focus is Chet, Paulo, or Jabari. I mean, that's, if you're picking the top 3, that's your focus. So there's no reason to be focused so those guys that are picked a little later, if Ochai could be between 9 and 18, or CB could be between 20 and 33, or 34, then there's more people. So you have more people calling you in that regard.
Sure, that makes sense.
What can they bring a team next season?
Both those two?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they'll bring a winning attitude and a winning, and add to their culture in a positive way. There's no doubts about that, and I don't think there's any NBA person that's talked to either one of them would say anything different than that.
What do you want in the class of 2023 recruiting?
And go ahead and 2023 recruiting. You know what? Right now, I'd say you want everything because you don't know who's going to leave. Could we need a point guard? Yeah, I mean, it's possible. Would we definitely need some wings? Well, we got a couple of pro prospects, and you know, you got MJ and Jalen and Grady and Kevin. I mean, those guys are all people have been talked about being able to go, so you got to prepare for that. So if I was picking, I'd say we need a big, a point, and a couple of wings. That's what I would say, and that's really going out on the limb.
Anything else?
You mentioned Zach. I guess what do you envision is possible for him?
I think Zach's arguably as good a prospect we have returning. Period. That includes Jalen. We talk about prospects, 6'10" almost. He can really shoot. He's going to get stronger. He's tough. He's got a great attitude. So, you know, his best ball is well down the road. But to me, he's one of those guys that you could look up and a year from now you'd be saying, wow, he's an all-league type talent. And I do think he has that in him. I do.
Do you think Jalen is in position to be, I know this doesn't matter as much, but Big 12 preseason player of the year? I mean, is he in that conversation?
I hadn't even thought of preseason player of the year because you know how much that means.
Right, yeah.
I do think he should have great consideration for that. If Jay Will has a good year and shoots the ball decently, guys, he could be an All-American. I'm not predicting it yet. I'll wait and study it, but Thomas Robinson didn't start a game, and I remember saying, hey, if T. Rob's an first-team All-American this year, we're going to be really good, and that's exactly what he was. And if Jalen, I think, is up to the challenge to carry that load. I think he thrives for that. So, I mean, I think he could be, but he's obviously got to get better and all that stuff, and he can't shoot 26 from three.
Yeah.
But even this year, if he shot 36 from three this year, he wouldn't be back in school.
Right. Yeah.
So he wouldn't be back in school. So, I mean, he's more capable doing that.
Yeah, he shot it really well at both the combine and the camp and everything we've seen. I mean, is that just time to spend?
Guys, from the NBA 3 in pressurized situations at the combine, going up and down, I think it was 8 of his first 12.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's more than capable of doing that. He just hasn't done it yet, but there's nothing wrong with his stroke.
Sure.
Every time he says, I know I can do it, and I said, well, he also shot a ball from 21 feet, 18 feet on the last three-point attempt of the NCAA tournament, too. So I mean, it's not pure yet,
right.
but I mean, I'm a big fan. I think his ability to score, do you really think that his ability to score is what Ochai's was after his junior year? I don't know that I would say yes on that. But I would say it would be probably more than CB was after last year, going into, after the year before, CB going into last year.
Right.
And so I can't imagine Jalen not having the potential to be a middle double-figure score for us at least. I do think he's got that in him.
What do you think that 26% was? I mean, just basketball? I mean, you make some, miss some?
I think in his situation, as conscientious as he is about everything that happened, look at his stats once Big 12 started.
Yeah.
So, and if you look at his stats once Big 12 started, I could be wrong, Chris, it was well above 30, 34. I mean, so he's not a 26% shooter. He's a 34% shooter that needs to get it up to 38, 39. So,
any White House or NCAA news?
No, I haven't heard any. You heard anything on the White House, Ben?
They're pretty backed up from COVID.
They're pretty backed up from COVID?
Yeah, not having teams come in.
So So you heard it right there from quote Dan Beckler on that the White House is backed up. But I'm hoping it happens because that would be a big thrill for anybody to go to the most powerful and should be the most respected office in the world. So I'm hopeful that happens. But Dan, we don't have any idea on timing yet, though, right? So, but it's going to get away from us if it doesn't happen pretty soon because there'll be another team that they'll be bringing in here pretty soon. Do we know if football ever went? Did Alabama go?
Well, I know Georgia hasn't.
I mean Georgia, not Alabama. Georgia, they haven't. So.
Because they just did the Lightning the past month or so ago.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
So they were running a year or so behind on that. So, yeah, I'm hopeful it happens, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Seemed like in 08 it was a lot smoother from the transition standpoint, but this year's kind of been
Different world.
It's a different world, but it's also great that we had a chance to experience it,
Yeah.
unlike the last 2 years. So, still great, even though different.
Sure.
All right, thanks, Coach.
All right, guys.
Thanks.